Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Change the world with your voice.
So, welcome to the Vocal Revolution, where we talk about changing the world with our voice, personally and collectively. And I'm just so thrilled to welcome to the show today Wallee McDonnell from Celebrate Life Events. And just to give him a quick introduction before we talk with him, you're in for such a treat because Wallee has such a wealth of experience in working in music and social justice settings. Currently, he's part of the team leading up Celebrate Life Events, which is what it says on the tin. It brings people together to celebrate life in amazing events, films, workshops, music. And what's also interesting is that often Wallee is able to bring together very diverse communities that often maybe even communities that might traditionally be in conflict with each other. It's very exciting. And they also have a wonderful documentary called The Power to Change coming out on the 10th of November, which I'm really looking forward to hearing more about as we talk. This builds on Wallee's previous experience. He was 8 years running the music programme at St Ethelburga's Centre for Peace and Reconciliation, where he made an incredible network of extraordinary world music musicians here in London. And he also has worked for many years at the Holistic Centre on the Greek Island of Skyros. He's worked for charities including Amnesty and the Refugee Council, and he has been committed to community projects of all sorts and shapes and sounds since he arrived here in England in 1977 from urban Dublin. So really a huge welcome to you, Wallee, and thank you for being here to come and share your pearls of wisdom or your wise chestnuts. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure, Katie. We've known each other quite a while, and it's a lot of it has been actually really through music, and because that's what you brought to my attention was through your music, and then we try to find a collaboration. I don't know if we ever really did find that collaboration to work together, but we've been involved with events you've put on, and you've come to our events, so it's been kind of we've woven across each other, and so watched each other what we've been doing and kept in touch. And we don't live too far from each other, here in South London.
That's right,
so,
just
yeah.
down the hill from me
Yeah.
in Brixton.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you, Wallee. No, it's been an amazing journey, and I've I feel really privileged to have witnessed some of your growth as the organisation, and to have collaborated on things like the Festival of Peace here in Croydon. It's been wonderful to see how your work's developed. So it'd be lovely just to hear a little bit from you. Obviously, I gave you an introduction, but it's obviously always just a very short insight into what's a very deep, long process of work for you. But reflecting on your story, are there some key turning points that you'd like to share with us in terms of your coming into this mission of working with music and social justice?
Well, sometimes I've thought about my life, and I've thought I don't think I'd wish it on anybody else. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that when you look at what refugees go through, people fleeing asylum and fleeing countries of conflict have been through. There's no comparison, but my life has been challenging because I wanted to not be bogged down in something that didn't suit me anymore. So I was willing to take that risk, because I used to find myself on the threshold of saying, am I happy doing this? No, I'm really not anymore. Do you know where you're going to? No, it's a bit scary. It is a bit scary, but do you want to stay where you are, step forward? Let's go forward. So that's really how it came about. I mean, actually, to tell you the truth, I got a break when I came to England. I was not in a good place. I was very active sports-wise, but had a bad injury with my knee. So I wasn't using my body, which was such a stimulation and such a gratification experience. And even if you think about a community, because you're with so many people and hanging out with them afterwards in the pub, or that become your friends. And suddenly I was out of it, and not able to attend a training course and things like that. So I was coming to the end of the season, that particular year, 1977. And so the games had kind of finished, the season had finished, it was summertime. And I was somebody who was, I'd become a hippie. I was taking drugs. But, the story I would tell you now would be just horrible in one sense because of what I got involved with. And but I got an invitation from one of my sisters. I had 6 of them to come and live with her and her husband in the Cotswolds in England. So I inherited my dad's car, drove over, and I arrived in the most beautiful Cotswolds from where I was living, which is really very urban in Dublin. And they ran a health food shop. So I was introduced to this new world of beauty, natural beauty, which I absolutely loved. And the Cotswolds is so gorgeous with all these little villages and narrow lanes and things. And I had this little Morris Minor I was puttering around. And I was helping in the health food shops and getting to meet these people who were customers. And they would be people like Buddhists and Friends of the Earth, people I would never cross my path. And inadvertently, I became vegetarian because that's what people were eating, and I just graduated into it. So I was a lucky break because that really colored my life. And also, I was meeting people who were interested in meditation of one form or another, and it kind of intrigued me. It seemed really outside my realm of assessing life, but I was intrigued by it, but I later went on to start to explore that after a while. So yeah, so that was my first step, was to leave my comfort of my friends, my scene in Dublin, but I was in a stuck place. So I jumped.
Wow.
I jumped, and it was like coming from black and white into color. To be quite honest with you,
Wow.
And especially in here in my mind, it was.
Yes.
And I found I was interested in people, interested to know about all things and what people were doing. And, so the journey kind of, this particular significant part of my life journey began then, actually.
Right. Yeah. And how amazing that you were brave enough, because I think, that decision-making process, I think many of us have faced similar moments where we're going, am I on the right track? Well, no, I don't feel I am, but I don't know where I'm going. And then we kind of have to choose, well, am I going to stay stuck or am I going to move? And you chose to move, and you chose to leave your roots as well. And you've done a lot of work with refugees, and I wonder if, as you say, obviously you came voluntarily in a very different type of circumstance to a refugee, but do you feel that you have more empathy because you've also left perhaps your roots and then had to change country-ish, as much as, I know it's a complex relationship between the UK and Ireland, but do you feel, is that part of your empathy or understanding for refugees?
Yes, that's a really good point. It is, because I had to open up to new surroundings and be in touch with fears and lack of confidence and discomforts and loneliness and not fitting in, a lot of things like that on a smaller scale compared to a refugee. So when I began to do that work, I really did feel and empathy and care, because when you travel on a journey, and it has been a kind of a journey, you go through a kind of certain amount of pain, and pain is interesting because you kind of like, you don't want it, but it's in a way you learn from it. But if you see somebody else in pain too, they have suffered. When I dealt with an individual or a family or a couple came to me at my desk at the Refugee Council, they were already safe in one sense. What happened had happened, but they were also in the uncertainty of what was next. So it was up to me to just be that hospitable person, to say, how can I help you? What are your needs? I know what I can offer you straight away, accommodation, and but what other needs do you have? So yes, absolutely, I think so anyway. And I kind of think about it, Katie, as a kind of matter of the heart. I became interested in kind of that a bit. You look at people's eyes, you see if they've got and refugees tend to be very open because they've been stripped of any kind of about their dignity, in fact, even so yeah, even when they meet officialdom, when they do arrive, it's not easy either.
No, it's not an easy process at all.
No, it's not. It's a long drawn out process, and it's kind of like, it's impersonal. We talk about all the people who've come in from Afghanistan, we've taken them in, but you don't know, they're stuck in hotels, and it's a whole process, and they're lonely. They're missing the familiarity of their language, of their culture, and it's a big deal. Loneliness is a big deal. It's a big deal, actually.
Loneliness is a huge deal, actually, and there has been in recent years, a lot of research, hasn't there, about how loneliness can, and the importance of our social networks, and that can have more of an impact on our mortality than things like
Yes.
smoking and drinking and things like that. And that's, I guess, what your events are doing, is bringing people together. And I know I've seen you do some beautiful projects bringing young refugees together to make art together, for example. I know we were part of a project, weren't we, in Croydon, where you did that and you ran some beautiful workshops. So,
Yes.
what do you see as the relationship? What can the arts offer people in those kind of situations where they're, as you say, experiencing high degrees of loneliness, disorientation, and facing sometimes a very aggressive process, and an impersonal process when they get here? How have you seen the arts helping people, and particularly music, obviously, because that's what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating, Katie, is that inside of everybody is this package of stuff that we don't even know about. Sometimes we don't know. You'll find refugees come over and they discovered art and stuff, but they hadn't been an artist, but they just have time, and this classes were presented to them. They dabbled in it, and they start to make amazing things, or write amazing things, or write poetry, want to be active, and obviously singing is a big thing, because so many cultures are related to singing and vocal expression, and songs are passed down, but yeah, inside everybody there's so much going on, and that's what I love about the arts. If you get a chance to nurture it, I mean, it's interesting how the governments focus on academic, and you can see the reason why. It's pragmatic on one hand, but actually the arts inside of everybody is art, I should say, inside everybody is massive, but it's just a lid needs to be lifted off and encouraged, and people will be drawn to dance, or they'll be drawn to, I don't know, painting something, and all kinds of ways, and it starts to nurture something, and starts to kind of do a kind of healing in a sense, and it's hard to even evaluate it, how much it means to people. What I've seen really, in terms of art, what I've seen was the project in Croydon, because the other ones I wasn't so involved with. I was just helping them to find their practical needs, find doctors, find solicitors, accommodation, etc. But the one in Croydon was amazing, because it encouraged the kids who I say kids, they're all teenagers, I guess, from about probably 13 to 18, 19, that kind of range. And it's just amazing. You bring in one teacher who has a skill in one area, and he'll bring us out, and another teacher in another area bring something out. And there's something about art, people just benefit from it. It's almost hard to quantify, but they just benefit from it, and they feel good in themselves. It's an extraordinary part of, and I can't even say I'm particularly artistic myself. Actually, I think maybe I'm more a facilitator of that. I'm more a person who, get up and speak at a microphone and invite people up, and maybe, I don't know, help an event to happen. That's kind of I suppose my strength in a way,
Yes.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of art, and the beauty of art is a beauty. It's a beautiful expression of people,
It really is. And yes, you have that gift. You have that gift of facilitating and to honouring people and bringing them into the space. And I think that's what's, I was thinking, if we could all package up or bottle up a little bit of Wallee spirit in our communities, it would be world would be a better place, because you are so good at inviting, including, meeting people, seeing where they are, and having that empathy, that heart-to-heart compassion, and as well being really practical, and as you said, at times you've had to do all the practical stuff of helping people get practical help, but also inviting them into spaces where they're going to feel safe to express themselves or have an artistic experience. And I know we were talking just before this about how you see the arts as sort of soft diplomacy. I love that. Could you say a bit more about what you feel about that?
Well, I think I might reference here St. Ethelburga Centre. And St. Ethelburga Centre is Centre for Reconciliation and Peace and Reconciliation, doesn't matter which way you say it. And also another tag to that is it's an interfaith centre. And they would have so many workshops, for example, in there. And, they really get tiring after a while, all these talking workshops. So the director that I met and eventually asked me to set up this program in there said, I really need a music person. I need something to create something artistic at the center. And I said, yeah, I was itching to do something. I was going around shops, music shops, trying to find a job after I'd left the Refugee Council, because I really decided I wanted to work in the area of music. I didn't know where it was, venues, music shops, writing to people and magazines, all kinds of things. And he was putting on something at the Alternatives at St. James's in Piccadilly, and I handed him a leaflet about a music workshop I was doing at a Kurdish centre in the Oval, and he lived in the Oval. He came along and he loved it, and he said, would you come and do something here? And what happened there was exactly as a word I use, soft diplomacy. It's just people come in and they may have been at a workshop all day about, and what was going on there with what Simon was trying to do, the director at the time, Simon Keyes. He would try and bring different people who are from a country of conflict, like Sri Lanka, Sudan, and bring them together and try and get talking workshops about reconciliation with the diaspora in the UK, because some of them were in different camps. But then he said to me, can you put on music events? He said, so what I turned into a world music program, he actually said, I want you to put on music from areas of conflict. And for that very reason, that it just has the effect of just people just sitting back and hearing a beautiful voice singing in Arabic or Latin American or, whatever the languages is, the countries they came from. Of course, we would provide food, because food is another softening of the things. And people begin to kind of like, just physically change, because what is that portal, Kate? What is that portal where music just kind of filters in? And before you know it, you're leaning back in your chair and you kind of dropped whole dialogue in here. You're just really taking in all kinds of nuances that's going on with the music. And you walk out and your heart's a bit more open. And so that was the idea. And that's what I think art is so powerful, and music in particular, because there's something about sound. I don't know what it is about sound. It kind of resonates with something within us, And I'll give you an example of that. We all go into supermarkets to buy our food, or some parts of our food. And often they're kind of strange places, because everyone's walking around, with their shopping lists, and
Yes.
unless you're with somebody, but often in some of the supermarkets, when they're playing some pretty cool music, some soul music, and I just start moving. And I love it. And I hadn't even thought it would do that to me. And I'm looking at it, I want to say, don't you get this? Do you know this song? It's great. And it's just, it's something in us, just kind of like an antenna just pops up and says, I'm happy. I'm hearing this. It's really changing my mood, So yeah, soft diplomacy. I just thought of it today, and it's so true, and we're born to really, let's be honest, we were born to enjoy this existence. That's when we're at our best. So things that embellish that bring that out of us, music, dance, being in nature, being with friends, with company, it's just, it's hugely important, because if you think, Katie, every day we listen to the news, and I'm a news person, it's not nice. It's awful every day. It's like one layer after layer, So we need what you're doing and what I do a little bit, not so much now, but we need it. We need it.
Yeah, we do. We do need
We
it.
thirst for it. We thirst for it.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it is a need, and it is often, the arts are often portrayed as luxury, like that they're extra somehow, and we don't really actually. For me, that is just a really blatant lie, really, because just coming from a singing perspective, if we think about how we teach our children and how we learn to form language right at the beginning of our existence is through making sounds, which are not language. And we learn and we teach our children through sing-songy type language. The way we talk to children is like a sing-song type of speech. And we do actually often sing to them nursery rhymes and things that help them grow and learn. So right from the beginning, the arts, and similar, I'm sure similar things could be said, we've all done that thing when we were little of, putting our hand in paint and,
Yeah.
and learning about ourselves and our spatial awareness through art making and going, yeah, this
Mm,
is my hand. It's like this. I can put,
mm,
all those things right at the beginning of our existence are learned often through the arts. And yet it's said to be a luxury and extra subject. And it's been sown in so many subjects that it is actually, when we have music playing, like you said, in the supermarket, if you have a good vibes in the supermarket, you're less likely usually for there to be, trouble in the supermarket or in the
mm.
tube station, which is why they're putting, they've got classical
Yes,
music in Brixton Tube these
yes,
days and
yes,
things like that. So there's loads of research that shows all of this, that
yes.
actually the arts aren't extra. They have such a huge role to play, a vital role in
Mm.
bringing us together. And that softening, that beautiful softening that you described, um, are there specific examples I'm just curious about? Because as you said about touching on these, which I've seen you do with celebrated life events, and I've just gone, wow, how did you get these people even in the same room together? Like really communities who have been at sometimes in civil war, as you say, maybe they're the diaspora. I think you've often had, I know artists from Rwanda speaking about their experience there, for example, but you've managed to get people from the different sides of a conflict in a room making music and appreciating each other's music. So could you say a bit more about that? Because for me, that is mind blowing, and I'd love to hear more about
Yeah.
those sort of stories.
But those situations really come about because through a connection to begin with. Somebody who quite often actually somebody came to one event and they said, we like what you do, we'd like to do it because we only do it with ourselves. We would love to open up something and even have some Westerners come to our music. So it filters down through those people who themselves are organizers within their community.
Yes.
But what actually happens, because when we interview people sometimes post the event, they wouldn't come singly, they come in little groups, they're in their safe little groups and they come out and that's how they arrive. And it's when we see the interviews and I go back and look at them sometimes, it's impressive to see what they make of what the event happened, the event. But the event isn't just an event per se. We usually have a theme. With Rwandan and Burundian communities, it was Amahoro, which means peace. With the Middle Eastern communities, which covered a number of countries, it was Amal, which was hope. Trying to remember, with Latin Americans, it was Pachamama, Mother Earth. And so we had people speaking on these things during the session. And so there was another idea that we planted seeds of thought into. So music, as we just discussing, it just opens up the heart, opens up the mind, and people are soaking it in. But we throw another little thing into the mix, just to say, actually, one of our events was called Love, and because we actually had it on Valentine's Day, and so we went around asking people, what does love mean to you? And they were like, oh, because what we knew what the standard line is, oh, I want to meet somebody. But actually, when you ask people, they did quickly tap into, oh, it means I really care about what's happening in my world, that I have an interest that my other neighbor isn't suffering and that I could help. They start coming out pretty amazing things, that just went beyond just a normal relationship things, and I love my parents, So that's really was the magic, was we always to have a little bit of another element to get people thinking besides just the visceral experience of being surrounded by music and a lovely vibe in the hall. Was that we would throw a little spanner, that's the wrong word, but a little seed into the mix. And people would say to us, we want you to do more of those things, and so that was a case of meeting relevant people, it filtering down, people coming tentatively in their little smaller groups, and then opening up, looking around them and saying, oh, and then, just feeling at ease, because, cities are not easy because they are full of strangers in a sense, people just feel good with their little group, but we want people to feel more confident in themselves and contribute, especially those who come from outside, to feel good, to feel, and they bring so much, Katie, don't they?
I know,
Bring.
it's so rich. It's so rich,
Yeah,
and to feel
yeah,
that, as you call it's celebrate life, isn't it? To celebrate life itself, and also all the different forms of life that we have in this planet. So rich that we have all these incredible cultures and different forms of music, that we can come to, that I could come to your event and suddenly hear something I've never heard before from a community I've never met before. That for me is mind-blowing and wonderful, and what a wonderful enriching experience when we can appreciate it like that, rather than being, as you say, self-protective. No, I'm just going to stay with my clan, which is kind of tribal, isn't it? And there's nothing wrong with honouring our clan and our tribe. Of course, that's important to honour and celebrate that, but we can go beyond that, and we can actually, I believe, have enriched understanding of ourselves when we meet people who are very different from us and can contribute so much more to us. And then that we have, it's great that you're choosing those kind of very core themes, because love, peace, hope, the earth, these are things everybody shares in a very different way. And I was just thinking about, you said Amal, and of course little Amal has just arrived here in London. For those of you who don't know,
right.
yes, she's
Got
an amazing puppet she's done a journey from Syria all the way here to the UK to raise awareness about the experience of refugees, and she's just been welcomed here by many musical groups, by the Royal Opera House. I just saw a clip of them singing her to go to sleep. It was just so moving. I just got tingles watching it. So, this is, again, it's just a sign of how much the arts can do. What a powerful symbol to have this huge puppet of a small girl, and for her to be sung to sleep when she's welcomed here by artists and sung to and welcomed with parties. And, it's what you would want for everyone arriving in this country, really.
Exactly what you just said. It's just again, it was a piece of art, really, isn't it? It's people create this puppet and taking around the symbolicness of it. And it kind of disarms things, because it's quite big and moves around, and it's the story attached to it. And I was reading something today that we're living in a society that's inclined to encourage us, without realizing it, to see our differences and kind of perpetuate our differences. When actually, I'll tell you a short story that when I was working for the Refugee Council at the time, the Evening Standard had. They had a section about job careers on a Monday supplement in their magazine, in their paper, and they sent a journalist to the Refugee Council one time, and my manager said to me, "Do you want to deal with this guy? Do you want to be interviewed by this guy for this thing?" And I remember I knew, because I used to read the article when it came out, and but of course, as you and I, as I've been explaining to you and the people who watch this, I've had a circuitous route to where I wasn't like I went to college and I did this and I was studied to go and work in a refugee. So I wasn't the ideal person for him, because he wanted to talk about how to plan a route into how to be work in this area of refugees and become a frontline advisor and progress in that area. And so he put down the pen. He says, "So what do you think of dealing with refugees? What's it like?" And I said, "They're human beings. When they sit down and talk to me, and I have a translator with me, they just want the same as me." And I remember he was like, "Oh," and it was kind of, I was surprised at his surprise. It's like, they're just people, because they are kind of classified into this strange person who's coming here. What do they want? They want our best of what we have, and yes. So that puppet, that Amal, it's great. Well, we need those kind of things just to trigger, conversations. Kids see them, they want to know what's about. The parents are explaining, and you said there's some beautiful things happening around it with artists. So you kind of feel, Katie, when we talk, we say, does the world really need to be so much conflict? No, is the answer. So
It's true.
That's
It's
how I
true.
feel
And
about
that's,
it.
a lot of it feels very tragic, because it does feel unnecessary, and it does feel, of course, we're always going to have to negotiate difference, and difference is,
Yes.
we can't bypass that, and that can be complicated, really complicated. But when we allow difference to not be threatening, and actually a place we can learn from, then it's different, isn't it? It's a different emphasis to guarding ourselves or protecting ourselves against, oh, that person's different from me, they look different from me, so I'm not sure about them, maybe I won't trust them. That's a totally different mindset to just going, this person is another human being like me, which is what you expressed so beautifully. And it is our shared humanity that I believe that music and the arts can really connect us back into, like, a very core part of ourselves, which is, I always say, it's kind of beyond my identity tags, it's beyond my biography and what kind of a shape or looking person I am. There's something inside me that is more core and intrinsic to all of that, and that music always makes me feel in touch with that. And people call it different things, but it's that kind of inner, and I believe everybody has that. Everyone has an inner world, and when music helps us connect with that and soften us into this sense of, hey, I'm just a person, and we're all just people here together, sharing this shared moment in time at this unique place. And that's, I've had those kind of moments in your events, feeling like, wow, this is a totally unique experience, and I'm so lucky to be here. So thank you for everything you're doing, Wallee. It's really
pleasure. But you just said something really interesting there, and this is really important when you talk about music connecting you to yourself, because that is what's missing. People are not connected, and if you're not connected to that inner part of us, you're kind of easily bothered by things. Instead of being kind of not only connected but continuing to learn a bit more about that inner connection, because it's the root of us, who we are, as you say. And to be honest, it should really be introduced in schools, that kind of understanding, not drummed into them, but how I look about it is work in a way where young people kind of make their own comments and understanding, so they grow from their own understanding. But so shouldn't be a foreign idea. So being in touch with yourself, it's huge. It's huge, And going back to the bit where you were saying about the government playing down the importance of the arts. Well, if we look at what's the state of the world, if you had a report card and you think that everything's been done from the logic of the mind, well, something isn't working. So there needs to be more of this other element to balance it a bit. But we got so locked into this. And I might say something radical now, but I'm kind of really seeing more women now becoming more important in roles. And we kind of need that energy, to be honest with you. We need the energy. The male energy, the male, whatever his ego has been, just the wrong thing. It's gone down some crazy path, and it's now very proud of itself, So I'm seeing these changes. Like me, I'm with Ronnie and Wendy and the team, and they're brilliant to work with. And I just see how they operate. It's very different to me, but just see how they think and operate things and come up with ideas and stuff like that. So that's another important part, I think, about the changes that need to happen, So
thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, and I really appreciate it's always really, I really appreciate the men in my life who champion female leadership. So thank you for being one such man, really, Wallee, because it takes a lot. Because as you say, for a man to be able to understand about the mechanisms of his ego and perhaps be prepared to put that aside in order to welcome the leadership of women, that's quite a process. So so thank you, because it is I'm of course absolutely committed to the cause of women rising to empowerment, and that being not about in any way bashing men in any way, but being about celebrating what we can all bring, and that we just need balance. We need, like you say, we just need more balance. And we do need more women in places where decisions are being made, because decisions are being made on behalf of women by men, which aren't always, working out so well for us.
Well, we're at the state we're in the world now, and it's not good enough. It's really not good enough, So,
So things need to
change.
change.
Again, I come back to the soft diplomacy.
Yeah.
I kind of think women kind of have that little bit of extra softness. They're willing to, but there's an inner strength. But they have that softness, and men needs to just come down a little bit. And I think it's happening. I don't know whether the men are backing down, but women are coming forward. They're coming forward, and it's just amazing, And it's
And
I see so many, great women around me. And I mean, I'm one of 7 children,
Yeah.
but I'm the only boy.
Right.
So I have, but that's a complicated story, as the families often are. But the 2 sisters that I'm really close with, they're amazing. They're just amazing ladies. They just, what they do, yeah.
Wow. Well,
Anyway, we're very, very away from the music, but
But it's all part of it. It's all a part of our expression. It's all part of our expression, because if and it's this, whether it's women or whether it's refugees, whether it's people, if people are not being given a voice in a society, then the society is off balance. That's how I see it. And the arts have this incredible power to give people a voice, which is why oppressive regimes have always tried to oppress the arts, because they know that actually through the arts people can make extraordinary expressions, they can galvanize support, they can really champion causes, as we've seen many times. And we've also seen how oppressive regimes will manipulate, control, censor the arts. I mean, thinking particularly of Hitler and Hitler's way in which he kind of demolished and then tried to completely manipulate and monopolize the arts according to his own agenda. But of course that's been done many other places as well. So this power of the arts to bring voices that are perhaps unheard or need to be heard to the fore is really, really important. And just I wanted to talk a bit about your documentary, because it's got this amazing title, The Power to Change, and we're talking about the need for change, both within ourselves as per people. You were saying as well that importance of, are we connected to ourselves? Do we have the power to change not just ourselves but also our society, our surroundings, if we feel that's what's needed? So do you want to tell us a bit more about those journeys that you've documented and shared about, and the wisdom in them? Obviously I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment.
I hope you're going to like it, whether you can see it on this particular occasion on November the 10th or future, because we will have many screenings, and not just in cinemas and small venues and things like that, because we really want to create a conversation about the ideas in it, because the one of the conversations which we will touch on around because one of the people who feature in the film is a guy called Prem Rawat, and his thing is all about being in touch with yourself, so that comes into it. But basically the film is really about, as the title says, about those who've been through, difficult experiences, and quite often their experiences born out of difficult upbringings, which led them to make the wrong choices, which led them to be put in prison and be hardened by that experience, and come back out into a certain group of people that they hung out with and repeat offending. Then having a mindset that was negative towards the world, and being out of touch with maybe a deep need to feel love or to feel better, to feel, to be creative even, it's like that all kind of dissipates because they've now operating on another level of survival and hardship and being hardened, and and so the people we've met, 2 of them we met in prison, although one of them I knew before he went into prison, and I'd met him on a training course about starting your own business. And it was really interesting because at the end of the few days we were all asked up to go up and give a pitch of how we would talk to our, and he was brilliant because he was a spoken word artist, and he was absolutely brilliant. I really liked him. We hung out with him, and I was trying to find him for a while because he lives local to where I am, and just couldn't track him down. At the same time, I was helping to facilitate this peace workshop in prisons, and when he walked in, and so he really got interested in it because he felt he needed to change, and he wondered, would this help him? And it helped him. He's busy doing other things as well, so he agreed to be one of the people. When I introduced him then to Ronnie and Wendy, he agreed to be one of the people. And so that meant we had to delve into his story, and his story is awful. It's just heartbreaking, and his mother's story is awful, because that whole, it's one thing seems to ripple onto another thing, it's like you're talking about Jamaica, you're talking about what people, that their ancestors were brought there as slaves, and so there's a certain kind of difficult history involved, and hardships and poverty, and so that's one person. The other person saying, the difficult family upbringing, just out of touch with their parents, but something inspired them to change, and they heard, in the case of two of them, Prem's message of honoring yourself, more or less, really honoring yourself, and you must start there, that kind of thing. And it was like, it takes a while for these things, as it did for myself, to develop. So when you do a documentary like this, which is a lot of conversations,
Yes.
you've got to edit it in a way that it's not boring. So it's not, a long thing, somebody talking. And Wendy has done an amazing job, because they're very, very short, sharp interviews, and they weave back and forth. So you're engaged, and you get to see the thread of the 4 or 5 people in it, so you can follow their story as they talk about it. And it's beautifully done. And there's a couple of other people in it, and one of them is Pastor Lorraine, and she herself, she's had 7 children, but one of them is a beautiful son. I've learned a lot more about him. I think it's about 5 years ago now. He was stabbed to death, interceding, or trying to prevent 2 guys fighting, and he just was the victim of the lashing out. And he was, she's talked about him a lot, how creative he was. He was an amazing kind of character. When they had birthdays, it's in the film, so I shouldn't say too much. He always wanted to sing a song for her. So he would sing a song just for her. That was his thing in their birthday party, So her story, and what she had to go through, the grieving, and then she became someone, I don't know, because she's a pastor, where she was asked to comfort other mothers who are losing parents. And quite often it's mothers a lot, actually. Quite often the father has disappeared. And so she had to find the strength to do that. And she's quite a remarkable person now. I really, actually, without her birth, you won't believe this. You just won't believe this. It was her birthday on, actually it's today, and I must send her a message, but the party was on Saturday. So we're at the party, having a few drinks, and it's getting a bit late, and I was there with Wendy, and we're going to go, and she said, before you go, I want you to get up and say something about the film. And she's just about to invite Wendy and I up to speak, and this person put their hand up in the audience, and she says, oh, you got your hand up, come over here. Now, she knew this guy. He got up and he proposed to her on the spot. He got on his knee and handed her a diamond ring.
Oh no!
And we were like, what? Everybody was like, the whole place exploded, because it was like totally unexpected for her. She's crying, because she's not a young person, me not a young person, but this was obviously bubbling away. And he's a lovely guy. I only just met him. So anyway, that's
Did she say yes? Did she say yes?
She did say yes.
Yay!
It was just amazing. So there's a wedding coming now.
Wow, now there's a wedding. Well, isn't that amazing to crown her story as well after so much suffering?
Exactly. And she speaks so eloquently about her journey and her journey to healing, what has been through. And she's opened this boxing club, which was his dream. And she's managed to open it, and she's been through some challenges in that boxing club too, but now it's there. So the party was in the boxing club, and she made it beautiful. She went and made it beautiful. It was like somebody's living room,
Yeah.
Everything was stripped away, all the punching bags and things like that. So when there's another guy, huh?
You weren't all hitting each other or.
and then there's another guy who's, he's stabbed anyway. So I won't go into all those details, but it's very moving. I think it's a very moving film. And so I think all we wanted to do is, again, to get a conversation going, to bring people together, to talk about the value of life, to talk about this inner connection that we all have, to talk about, what gifts there are inside, because a lot of the young kids, in the Black community in particular, some of them are growing up in broken families, they're losing their confidence. They're losing their confidence to lift their head up high, to see beyond their state they're living on, to feel maybe there's because of their color, someone's holding them back, all kinds of things. So there's a lot going on in the film on a lot of different levels. And another very key person who I met, and I was very lucky that I met a lot of these people in the film, was a guy, and he's the founder of Impact Brixton. which is a wonderful entrepreneurial space, beautiful. He's got a huge office now in Brixton, and he tells his story. But his story is challenging in one sense. The fact that he came from a lovely family unit in Ghana, but they wanted to better themselves, so came to Brixton and came to London, ended up in Brixton, ended up in Angeltown. And he says, I thought we went backwards because there was so much crime and danger in the area. But he followed a leaflet came to his door to come study computer science. And now he's the most amazing guy. So he tells that story.
Wow.
But it's all interwoven, not in long periods. But so, yeah, so sorry, it's a long answer to your question.
No, but it's a huge project that you're right in the middle of. And of course, there's lots to it. And what's, you've really given us an overview of and some sneak previews into some of the stories that are involved, and they are really inspirational. And I have heard Pastor Lorraine speak at your events before, and so I'm thrilled to hear about the marriage proposal. On a personal level, I'm really thrilled to hear that, because it's such I've heard her speak about her story and just how tough it's been, and so it's lovely to hear that story is moving on and evolving in such an incredible way, and that we can, out of such horrific instances in our lives, we can still, this is the power of creativity, really, isn't it? Because there's some life force in us that, it's a bit like what you started out with this decision making. Do I stay where I am, or do I go for something different? What can I create with my life? And that's what I believe our innate spirit is creative. Our innate life force, whatever we want to call it, is creative, and it will help us build something new, even out of what looks like an absolute catastrophe. There's no way out, there's no hope, and yet there is still, like I always look at little flowers growing up between concrete. There is still creativity. Even in the darkest of places, there is still creativity. And I even remember reading about Terry Waits, and how Terry Waits, when he I think someone flagged up his story again during lockdown, because of course he's a man who was on a horrific lockdown as a captive for many years, wasn't he? Having been abducted and kidnapped and captive for many years. And he talked about how did he survive that in his, like, mentally, without going mad. And he talked about the power of creativity, and about how he literally wrote a book in his head. He he wasn't allowed anything. No, he could nothing to write on or anything. So he couldn't write anything. So in his head, he was writing his book that he then did write when he was released. So this is just another example, and your film is full of these incredible, powerful examples of people using their inner connection to themselves and their creativity and their force for life within them to change. And it's wonderful that you're celebrating that, because we need more celebration. We need more. Of course we have to look at the negative. Of course we have to face head on the issues but we also need to celebrate the people who are coming through, who are breaking through, who are leaders, and I'd love to see more of that in the media, because I think it inspires people. Otherwise, what do we have to emulate? Who are our role models? If our role models are not behaving so well, or we're only holding up the people that have done wrong, but what about holding up the people that are doing the amazing stuff, and can't we follow them and listen to them, So I think it's wonderful what you're doing, really important, and giving voice literally to stories that need to be heard, that need to be told.
But coming back to music, of course, that the music does play an important part in the film, as you can imagine.
I can imagine.
There's soundtracks that augment things, and there is some music as well, but there's that, because it evokes emotion. So you're seeing, because like when you do a film like this, you can't just shoot somebody all the time and have headshots. You have to have what they call B something, and what's called something, where you just have people walking around doing things. And then you need music coming along, but also there has to be music that connects with the mood. So again, music is so important. It's really important in the film. Actually, I realized that watching it. So yeah.
And were you involved in? How did you choose the pieces? Were they kind of related to the communities that people were from, or how did it? Or was it more?
It's interesting. There's again people we met mostly. I mean, at the event you came to in Lambeth College, we have some of that singer. Remember that young girl? We have her. In fact, she's coming to the event actually on the 10th, and
What's
she
her
just got
name?
married herself. Her name was Enne. So she's in it. But it's really through friends, really. Do you know Mel Larson by chance?
Yes.
Well, her partner,
Yes.
he's a producer and a composer, isn't he? Pete Larson.
Right. Yes.
So we've used some of his. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful what he's come up with.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's just Wendy
That's
really
wonderful.
was choosing them pieces.
Yes.
And there's a bit at the beginning, a bit at the end. It's just, yeah, it's a mix. So that it's, you need to have a film because, as I said, it needs to have a lot going on in it to keep it engaging. Because the
course.
subject can be difficult at times because people are talking about their worst things they've been through. So that's part of it, especially at the beginning. Then you come through, you see the parts where what happened afterwards. So at the beginning they're talking about what happened to them in their lives, and so yeah, well,
That's the journey, isn't it? That's the journey of the well, Joseph Campbell famously called it the hero's journey, or we could call it the heroine's journey. But yeah, that journey
yes,
through,
it is.
Through trial. What does that teach us? How do we transform it? We have this invitation, as it were, to transform if we take it, and that can, and what we each experience, because I'm sure everyone listening, and everyone watching today will have had their own trials and tribulations. But what I've learned is that out of that, you can create something that's not just healing for yourself, but also of service to other people, and can inspire and touch and uplift. Like Lorraine suddenly mentoring and taking care of other bereaved parents, and then setting up, her boxing gym, which is a place for young men to come and to express themselves and to, master themselves, as it were, and as well as get fit and have fun. So that's really so inspiring, just as one story of a mother whose son was stabbed. So yeah, and I think we all have within us and have all had times of pain, and it's what we do with it. One of my friends used to say, our pain is our soil. So how are we going to fertilize it? How are we going to plow it back into life? And how can it then be of use to us and to others? Yeah.
That's beautiful, Katie, and I completely agree with you. And I think all the characters in the film, most of them, are very much wanting to be active now. One of the guys in the film, because what also comes up in the film is the whole issue around revenge, and somebody who's had things happen to them, and he goes through, tells his story, but what happened, where he got to a point where he realized he has this lovely family now, and he said, I'm not gonna lose that. And so that's another part of the story where he made that change, where he reasoned that out. But I've got something that it's so means so much more to me, and the real fire of his revenge has dissipated anyway, but the time now has gone by. But it was a decision also that he felt like, gosh, he was able to choose. Choice, that's an interesting topic, isn't it?
It is,
choice,
yeah.
choose,
And when there have been cycles of, as you say, cycles of pain and then revenge and that happens, doesn't it, in communities, sometimes over very long periods of time.
Look at the gang thing. It's often about revenge.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, over some slight, it can be over something,
That's right. And it's having, and so it's just expected. It's expected that you will revenge. But if we actually go, well, I have a choice, actually. I can choose. And if, I love that phrase, the best revenge is happiness. If you're actually just, which is what your guy was expressing, like, my life is so good now, that's the best in the way. If you had to get any revenge, that's your best revenge, is to live your best life and be happy and, and not let what someone did to you overshadow your life. Then they have no power over you. And to just live your best life and not be as much, and to learn and take what you can to move forward, rather than be beholden to some kind of revenge story or narrative. It's not easy. None of that's easy, gosh, because there's such powerful instincts and emotions involved. And so anyone who's been able to do that is, wow, just have to take your hats off. And I'm sure these people you're talking about are highly, highly inspirational and highly, highly great teachers for us all to listen
Yeah,
to.
I'm in awe of them because they've been broken. They were broken. They were broken by what they went through, what happened. I mean, one guy almost lost his life because he was stabbed badly, and the shock of that, is huge. And now they're still carrying. Some of them are carrying, you know, damage from their own youth, but there's something shining in them now. Actually, so. And I have a lot of feelings for them because they're still working on their. One of them is really still working on his life, actually, quite a bit. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. And where can people come and see the film? Do you want to tell us the
Okay,
details?
yeah, it's going to be at the Ritzy Cinema in Brixton, the famous Ritzy in Screen 1, the Art Deco screen, which is fantastic. And that will be on the 10th of November at 6 o'clock. And if you go on to Celebrate Life website, you'll see a link for that. It's not part of the booking system for buying a ticket. So you have to buy a ticket through our link to do it that way if you can. It's a donation actually. There's no price, so you make a donation. But
Yes.
one thing I wanted to say actually, Katie, and I didn't touch upon it, is Skyros.
Oh, yes.
And the reason I wanted to mention Skyros is that is so artistic. And it comes back. And a person I met there had a big effect on me was somebody you may have come across. Is a lady called Frankie Armstrong.
Oh, yes, I have. Yes,
Yes.
amazing.
So the first time I started to sing again, because once I left being in Ireland where we sang in pubs, and then I've changed, and various things happened, and I was busy doing various things. And went back to Skyros. Singing is a huge part of there. And one of the first person who ran voice workshops was Frankie Armstrong. And I remember like pretending we were in a field plowing and call and response. And it's like the lift we had from it and the joy. It was just, so I thought I must mention this when I speak with you about Skyros and the singing times, out there,
Yes.
various people have come and run workshops. Hopefully, maybe one day we'll have to get you out there.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many amazing things and seen so many artists. Actually, Tom Morley, who you know well,
Oh, of
and
course.
also
Oh, yeah.
was one of our guests on Vocal Revolution. He's
Oh,
been
I
a
missed
regular
that.
guest he's been a regular guest at Skyros, I know. But coming back to
Mm.
Frankie, yes, Frankie, for those of who don't know Frankie, please check her out. She's an extraordinary folk singer and activist, and she does come from that place. She has many, many important messages, and she's written books, so please find those as well. And she also has
I didn't
headed
know
up,
that. Yeah.
the Natural Voice Network, which I am part of, which is
Wow.
basically that premise that the voice is natural to us, and that, as she was demonstrating with you very viscerally, that we would have sung in the fields, we would have sung with lots of daily activities. And in fact, I remember, when I was a bit younger, there was more singing. There was more singing, people just
Yeah.
singing, like builders singing on building sites. And, there was just more singing and whistling and in the street. This was more around, I feel. And I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure why it has been silenced in a way. I'm not
Mm.
sure if it's just because we're plugged into these and
Mm.
therefore we've become more passive in our consumption, and we're
Mm.
more frightened perhaps to be, especially on the street, you're worried that you're going to get accused of being, antisocial or something, or mad or worse, So I think there has been this loss of voice, but people like Frankie are out there helping us remember that is our natural state. It's our natural state, as I said at the beginning with children. It's natural to sing, to make a huge spectrum of sounds, and that she helped you is a wonderful story and a great way to celebrate, as we were saying, singing for me is a celebration of life, and
Yes.
it can celebrate all of life, all the tough stuff, all the tricky stuff, all the amazing stuff, and singing is a way to do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's like you're singing and you're hearing, or all those around you, and everybody just gets lifted. Everybody, people will come out of the workshops and they're just like, so fun of, and then getting each day maybe going over some of the songs and getting better and better, So yeah, I was huge fan of Frankie's, so
Yeah, we all have our journey, don't we? Our musical journey of
musical
how
journey.
music
Yes.
moves us, and what our next level is in our
Yeah.
journey. So Wally, I just want to say thank you so much for all your stories you've shared today. I know
Pleasure,
we could go
pleasure.
on forever, but
Yeah,
I'm aware that time has passed, and
right. Yeah, we should wrap up.
we need to wrap up. But thank you so
Yeah.
much, and
I,
thank you
I
to all
also
our
want to
listeners.
thank, yeah, I want to thank you for the scoop recently. Wasn't a scoop you
Oh,
did? That
thank you. Yes,
was so beautiful in the
sing for
rain.
water, sing for
It was
water in the
fantastic
rain.
in the rain. It was fantastic. Loved it.
Yes, and my
Yeah.
previous guest, of course, Helen, who founded
Helen,
that.
yeah.
You know, we had a very extraordinary Sing for Water 20th anniversary event this year in the rain, as you said, and thank you for sharing the videos and watching that. Yeah, we had
Yes,
a
gorgeous.
very extraordinary time, and it is a celebration of what song can do in the world, which is dear to my heart. And I know that that same mission flows through your work about how we can use music and the arts to make our
Mm,
world just a
yeah,
little bit better for everyone. But
yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so much, Wally. It's just been wonderful to talk to you.
You
Thank you so
too, you
much.
too. Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Katie.
Thank you so
And we'll
much.
see you around, I'm
We
sure.
will. And good luck with the
Okay,
documentary. Don't forget everyone to go to the documentary screening on the 10th of
absolutely.
November.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks so
so
much.
much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.